It is 4 o'clock.
Comes our scribe. Boy.
The scribes were the Pharisees. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start. Hoping that this will be a relatively painless process. We'll see. If you don't mind, let's start with the 9-month calendar. We had the two examples, example 3 and example 5. We're not proposing any changes to either of them. We would be willing to entertain a discussion about either. Our preference going in is example 5. Okay, so tell us what you think.
We had 93% of our membership select option 5 as well as their top choice. So that was a resounding.
How
We
about you
had
guys?
a resounding 75% say it as well. So I mean, the majority definitely leans in favor of option number 5.
Okay.
And comfortable majority, yeah.
Yes, the
Okay.
only, I don't know if you would call it a change, we had multiple people ask about the end of semester and end of school being an early out, because those days just being what they are, just those two, end of semester and end of school being an early out. We have that from multiple people.
From what we discussed and what we had said out through the meetings going, the ones that we had discussing this, that causes a multitude of problems with our classified staff, and we feel like they've been shortchanged, and there's been a lot of angst about that. We just feel like it's better to have those be full days, and it's a better deal for our classified staff.
And they don't have to worry if they're gonna get paid, not get paid, if they're supposed to be there, not supposed to be there. We have half of them there, half of them not. It's not worth it. No,
It just makes
full
it cleaner.
days.
Cleaner.
We will invite you to come teach in our classrooms on those days.
Hey, I've been in your shoes for 26 years. I was in your shoes.
We will invite
I
you.
filled up 3 hours. You could fill up another 3 or 4. I know, but the teaching staff is not the only staff.
We understand.
Yeah.
But couldn't you make it just black and white straight across the board? Let's say you get out, I'm gonna use Ruby to time. You get out at 1:40, early out. Classified staff, if you go home at 1:40, you clock out, you don't get paid.
But that's what they were screaming about.
I mean, it's
I
cut
mean,
and
come
dry.
on,
If
you were the voice of a lot of that classified staff who was so unhappy with, are we getting paid, are we not
But
getting paid?
I understood. You clock out, you go home, you clock out, you don't get
But
paid.
But why should they stay there when
What you're saying
school's
is,
out?
you're saying is they would have the option to stay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then what would they
have to
do?
have it.
Yeah, and then what are they doing?
Honestly, there's not a whole lot they can do.
There's nothing. Maybe on that day in December, because school still happens come January, and so teachers could leave them something to do if they're paras, but if you're another classified staff or another classification, there may not be anything for you to do. And the last day of school, most definitely not. I mean, everything's boarded up, put away, locked up.
Then they should know at the beginning of the school year, hey, it's a half day. You better save a half time in your bank if you,
It's really only 2 hours is usually what it is.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a 2-hour early out.
2 hour early out, so
So
2
that we can
hours.
count it as a full day. That's why it's
2
a
hours in this, would be 2 hours in December and 2 hours in May that they would miss out on.
I don't know, I just think maybe if they know straight ahead of time, it might go over better, but.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of it was just the confusion of the, whether you were supposed to, whether you weren't
Right.
supposed to. Not as much the not getting paid option, but I think exactly what Amy said.
Well, and I
If you're-
think it was the not getting paid because at the same time we were discussing it, they had lost, how many days did you guys lose last year?
We only
6.
lost-
So you lost 6 days, now we're taking,
We ended up paying several of those snow days.
Right.
out.
yeah.
We only had to actually use 2 days out of our leave bank, if I remember correctly, because the others we got paid for.
And you did that out of the goodness of your heart? Yeah, you shouldn't have gotten paid for it. And moving
Right.
ahead to a new calendar, you wouldn't get paid for it. Because that was the
But policy
confusion
is
of
if
that
it's a
first year.
complete shutdown, they do get paid, correct?
And so he
If we
declared
close
it
the
that.
district, that means
Right.
every single.
Which is
employee
what
stays
happened
home.
last year.
And that's
No,
what he
it
did, he
Guys,
declared it.
it is cleaner with full days.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like not budging even just a little bit on that, just because of what we hear. And I don't know, Lori, speak up, but, I mean, my email and my phone, yeah, no, not worth it.
The superintendent at that time could announce an early out as well, though.
And
That's
say
what
he's
the next
gonna pay
person will worry
everybody.
All right. Are we in agreement on number 5? Okay. Now, the only other thing this has been so nice, I hate to even bring this up, but there was some discussion, both of the last 2 meetings, about when the active shooter training would take place. My recommendation is that, and Dr. Williams is here, so if she doesn't like this, if you guys will let her speak, we'll give her a chance to address it. I would like to see the new employee active shooter training be a part of the new teacher institute, because that one's a little bit longer. My understanding with the refresher course is that it's 30 to 45 minutes, or is it longer than that?
It's not long,
Okay.
about 45.
I think just so everybody knows up front, I would like for us to be able to come up with some wording that talks about when active shooter training will take place. If the ones for new teachers is done at New Teacher Institute, nobody, even if it fell on the problem with getting all of them in the PD days is just the number of schools we have and the availability of the police officers and those kinds of things. Could we agree if something's going to be no more than a 45-minute activity to say something along the lines of active shooter training will take place on any of the 5 pre-service days in August. It will be a maximum of 1 hour, or we could say 45 minutes. Buildings may combine for this training. Would that be acceptable? Some of them would fall on PD days, some of them would fall on the 2 work days, I'm guessing.
But it's gonna happen.
Will,
Go ahead.
will the time of that, if it does fall on if it does fall on a PD day, will that PD time then be shifted to a work day? Or will it be,
No, it should be part of PD.
it should be part of PD the
Yeah.
whole time.
But
So
if it falls on your
falls on a
work
work
day-
day, will we have an hour given to us on a PD day?
Probably not, because you're not
Also,
gonna
we
get-
had asked about the option of like recording the training, having the school resource officers get together. That was discussed during United. Is that an option? Because then you're not bound to the amount of officers getting around to all the buildings.
Marley, see if this sounds, explain, because I don't think Marley wasn't at that United
So,
SJSD.
She was,
Okay.
she
Or
was.
were you there when
Do you
they
guys
talked
mind
about
if
that?
she weighs in on this?
We're good.
What are your thoughts, Dr. Williams?
Well, and as I said, I think at that time, Solon, Dr. Haynes is the person who oversees active shooter or intruder training. That's something that I would just try to help coordinate in terms of when it happens at the time. The question that I would like to have clarified then is if we do move the new teacher training to the New Teacher Institute, what will happen? Will people have will people be upset if they're not in your refresher and they're getting that hour in their classrooms to work because they've already been through the training?
I think the biggest issue with the new teachers was more that they weren't a part of what it was that we were doing in our buildings on the day that they were taken away to do their active shooter training.
Right.
So it took away from, because it was actually building PD day for my buildings. And so those people were taken away from building PD, and we didn't even know who the new people were in our building at that
I think
point.
that's absolutely valid. And I totally see that. My concern would be if it is equally understandable then that if we do it during the Teacher Institute, there wouldn't be angst created because these new teachers would get the hour that we're substituting if you do it on a PD day plus the time that everyone else in the building is doing their active shooter training because they've already been through it.
My hope is that our staff who are, well tenured in the district would understand that that would be the hope. And I think that we could agree that that would be completely acceptable to give our new teachers into the district that 1 extra hour that they don't have to attend our refresher course and they can spend that time in their classroom. I cannot see why anybody reasonably would have an issue with that.
Especially when they're already doing 5 days
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
prior to the
there's-
school year.
There's a lot that they're getting hit with and very little of their time is being able to be spent in their classroom. And many of us already have an established classroom. So I think that would be totally fine in my perspective.
New Teacher Institute's 3 days.
Right.
Yeah, because even if they're new to the field or new to teaching and or just new to the district, they have a lot to do.
There's a lot.
To get ready for that first day of school. So that's what I said too. When we were visiting, I said, I would think that people wouldn't even think anything of it because they've already had, an extended training. And so that would be their time better spent.
How long is the training for the new
Well, and I
teachers?
sent this to Dr. Kraus back after the last United SJSD meeting, and the statute is 170.315, and it requires, let me get to the hours part.
It is
The length of the
required by
training
statute.
May be 8 hours, and the annual refresher may be 4 hours. So while it is a maybe, you have leeway within that. So the statute recommends 8 for new and 4 for refresher. What we have done is work with our law enforcement, which is not unique to the St. Joseph School District, it's actually statewide. And work with our law enforcement to make that a manageable amount of time for personnel. Not to have to sit for 8 or 4 hours. And hours looks like between 60 and 90 minutes for the refresher and about 4 hours for the initial. So I think that is a benefit you need to understand that the district and the law enforcement folks have worked on, that you're not sitting there for 4 hours to hear the same training every year. So that is the time requirement under, it's 170.315 if you're interested, under RSMO.
And didn't we talk about too, maybe having the refresher, like at each of the high schools and then the feeder schools coming into each of the high schools? And then you could really get that in on those PD days. You wouldn't have to touch the teacher work days because you wouldn't, there's 3 PD days, so somewhere in there, those 3 days, you could get the law enforcement, and that would be asking them to do less too if they only had to do it 3 times. So that would be something to work towards. I say protect at all costs as much as we can those teacher work days and not put that intruder training on those teacher work days, to actually put them on the days that are labeled PD.
That would be my only concern about putting it in writing, that it could be on any of those
Yes.
days. Is that then it is allowed the potential to be there. And instead of focusing it in on actual professional development days, which is what it is.
And
I think a little flexibility is important, really, if the law enforcement folks can't come on the days we need them to, if something happens.
Right.
I think ideally, you're right, having those on the PD days is what would be best. I just would hate to make it an absolute in the event that when Solon calls them,
they don't have the availability to be able to do it, so, yeah, I agree with having a little bit of flexibility.
Right.
And I think we need the flexibility, but
Well, our intent
The
is to
thing-
protect.
it is. But we also really have to protect that time, and
That's what I
I can just hear a handful of principals who might, okay, we have to go do an intruder training, it's your work day, but not compensate that hour back to the teachers during
Right.
PD time. Oh, well, this is PD day and we're gonna use up all of your PD time. Well, no, you've taken an hour of my PD time already over here.
Right.
That's, for me, I would want that, if we're gonna be that flexible, would want the wording in there to say, if it happens to fall on, a designated teacher work day, that time needs to be compensated back to the teacher.
I don't even think it should be up to building
Building
principals.
time.
Whoever, who schedules that is Solon, who schedules that, and you who schedules PD. So the two of you could get together and do your best to get it on a PD day with the flexibility of, the only reason it wouldn't be is if law enforcement, it wouldn't be us that isn't getting it done that way, it would be law enforcement. And then they would know plenty ahead of time.
It should be, the PDC actually works on the PD plan along with.
You have your
CPD
team,
and
right, that's what I mean, but that's where the decision is, so it shouldn't be individual building principals. If it's scheduled into the PD, it's been scheduled in by your
Right,
committee.
what I think she's saying is if the building PD that they design on their own, that doesn't come through the
Right.
district PDC.
Gotcha,
Right.
your building meeting.
Right,
means-
Right.
taking that right where it is.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm not talking about the district, I'm talking about the building level PD. I can see, if we have to go do this, there would be some principals that
Let
would
me
not
offer
give us
this,
back the time.
let me offer this as a suggestion. Teachers new to the district will attend active shooter training during New Teacher Institute. While returning staff are attending the intruder training refresher course, new staff will be free to work in their rooms. If training for returning staff falls on a teacher workday, staff will receive a comparable amount of work time during one of the building PD days.
Yeah,
That's
That's pretty
completely.
that's pretty clear.
That's pretty clear. And that's gonna go in the AP?
I don't know if it's in the form of an AP, we could type it on the bottom of the calendar if you
Oh.
wanted, I guess.
I just.
I mean,
that would
I don't
be
know
good.
where it
I
needs to show
like it
up.
at
the bottom of the calendar.
Yeah,
I
then
like
it-
that
then they'd
idea.
see it.
Then it's right there.
Everything.
No questions.
Would that be acceptable to
That
everyone?
would be acceptable.
That sounds
With
good.
the understanding that, the focus is to eventually get it to be more streamlined.
Right.
Where you don't have to worry about those kinds of things, that we can
Right.
maybe centrals, everybody's centrals, feeder schools, I like what you were saying.
As Dr. Williams said, though, we're always going to be tied to the availability of the,
Right.
At the mercy of
police
the
staff.
law
But if you
enforcement.
only have 3,
There should be.
That's what I'm
Reduce
thinking.
the
One
amount.
per, and one per
Lots,
PD
much.
day, that, I mean.
Right.
and
You
they
can
each
put
have
in the
their resource
auditoriums
officers,
or
so-
in the gyms and do all your feeder schools in each high school and
So can I
get
ask
everybody in 3
Dr.
meetings.
Williams a question that still pertains with this?
Sure.
And that's one of the other pieces that
The-
we have to be able to seat that many people. in
Yes.
different
Air
spaces.
conditions.
During the
That's
new
why I said
teacher
auditorium or
institute,
gyms.
Gyms are air conditioned.
did all of the new employees sit through that active shooter training there?
We could have them air
Yeah,
conditioned.
it actually was. That's right. So we had 3 days of New Teacher Institute, and then Solon had arranged for their active shooter training to come at a different day.
Because the reason I'm asking is for the handful of former SJSD employees who left for a few years but came back. Because that was one of the comments I heard from several of those is, I was here just a couple years ago and sat through all this, why am I sitting through X, Y, and Z again?
Actually, we've already started, I have a subcommittee off of PDC that
Mhm.
volunteered, and that subcommittee's already met once to start planning for New Teacher Institute, some of the things that we're bringing back, mentoring.
Okay,
That is consideration.
so that's something already being looked
That's
at.
not related to active shooter, that's something different.
No, it just, but if I'm,
Dr. Williams,
if I am remembering correctly, the intruder training was part of it, that, or something, maybe. Okay.
what's the
All right, thank you.
possibilities of videotaping intruder training?
I didn't know.
What's the possibilities of videotaping intruder training?
That would be a solo question.
I think the
That's not my
possibilities
purview.
exist there, and
Makes it-
really, you could even make it unique to each building. And you just make it part of your talent ed compliance.
Compliance training.
Okay, so, example 5, with the noted changes, mainly the 21st to the 20th, 22nd to 21st, adding May 22nd as makeup day 6, changing the language at the bottom to 6 built-in weather days, and the wording about intruder training. We're
So
good?
is the intruder training gonna fall when classified staff is back?
It's all separate.
Well, because I know last year, we didn't get intruder training, because we started on the first day of school.
Right.
Right.
We-
But that's
yeah.
why we changed it
That's-
this year and you did.
True, and we're just
It's a
hoping
liability
because we
issue.
don't know when, we don't know yet when classified staff will
Right.
be able to come back for this upcoming
But
year, 'cause we're
we'll-
not negotiating or
We
we're not
will
meeting further
know
on
that,
yet.
we will know that before this
Before
is
all-
scheduled.
Yes.
Yeah, so. All right, anything else on the 9-month calendar? Okay, the 12-month calendar, we had a pretty extensive discussion about at the last United SJSD meeting, and the consensus, as I recall, was to, we had come in with days off on the 5th and 6th of July, and a 6th one to be added, and we ended up putting those at 20th, 21st, and 22nd of March, was how we left things. We are okay with just doing what we left the United SJSD meeting with. What are you guys thinking?
Is that for the 260 employees?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody has a suggestion that was brought to me. They want to know, suggested moving March 20th to have July 5th off, and the week of July 4th, work summer hours.
that was
They would
something
have to work
that,
their 4 10s, which would be basically 2 10s on Monday and Tuesday,
Right.
second and third. And basically what you're saying is Friday being a Friday off.
Yeah.
Under the green summer hours.
But United, the
Is
majority of
that-
them wanted here.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the United, the
I was gonna say,
majority
the
of them
majority
wanted it
wanted
on
spring
spring break.
And they can take vacation if they want to take the 5th and 6th off. We put in policy that week would be a 5, 8-hour week, or how did we word it?
5 to 8
Yeah,
I
that
think
might
what,
be-
I think what occurred
Policy
here
change.
was in June of 18, you're going to 4-day weeks after Memorial Day. So you're gonna be on 4 10s with Fridays off, then all of a sudden, boom, you hit the first week of July with going back to 5 8s.
That's true.
And then the following week, going back to 4 10s again.
But really, they're gonna go back to 4 8s, because they're gonna have, it's to their benefit, they're gonna work 8-hour days, 4 days that week, because they're gonna have Wednesday off. They still have a day off that week, just like they do the other weeks, and they're not having to work 4 hours.
Well, they're in the routine, I think is
addition,
what they.
or 2,
what they-
4, 6, 8 hours extra.
They're in the routine is what they're asking. And where Monday and Tuesday would be the same as what they've done the previous 4 weeks, and they're gonna continue it in July, and then they're getting the rest of the week off on a holiday, and you're still getting 2 days at spring break as it is anyway.
Why couldn't that not be their day off?
the other disadvantage to having it that way would be if anybody wanted to take vacation on the 2nd and 3rd, they'd be charged a day and a quarter instead of a day.
Just like they would be all summer.
That's a very good
Because all
point.
summer they're a day and a quarter per day. Darn too bad that didn't come up prior to United SJSD, so that could have been discussed with the whole group.
I feel like to represent them based on what came out of United, we would need to leave it this way because the majority of them said,
I would
They want it on
suggest
spring
that the work calendar, the 260 work calendar is not a statutory requirement to have the hearing where we're set to have the student day hearing for November 13th. So it's not that you couldn't take it back, and still, I still think you'd have time to get it all by November 13th, but that's up to you.
I would like to enter one thing. I just reviewed the statute on active shooter. I don't believe we can have it videotaped because one of the statutory requirements is that all school personnel shall participate in a simulated active shooter and intruder response drill.
We don't do
So I
that.
don't know that you can do that with the.
Did they not shoot off again in your building? Oh, see, they did for us. I mean, they actually shot a,
Oh, so.
what, I mean, it was a blank, so you know what it sounded
Yeah, I
like.
know, I've been through it.
Oh, yeah.
Just for.
Okay, so,
You could videotape it though, Marley, and be able to reduce down your amount of truly simulated drill for 1 hour.
So we don't even do the drill now.
As a refresher, you don't do the drill at all?
Haven't for years.
If they did the drill, it wouldn't be done in 45 minutes.
We just go over the PowerPoint and that's it.
Then they talk us through the drill.
They talk us through the drill, yeah.
They talk us through everything.
Is Dr. Haynes still here?
He's included with.
I said, is Dr. Haynes still here? I mean,
okay. Going back to the 260 calendar, I think our overall consensus of our group was we should leave it as it had come through United SJSD. I personally would be willing to entertain if you guys, since it isn't as time sensitive and critical as terms of a hearing and all that stuff, if you want to take it back to United SJSD, we could do that, or do we just want to make the decision tonight?
How frequent was that comment?
I got a phone call today on it.
Okay, so just one person who noticed that would be a possibility.
I guess it didn't come in on the comments when Julie sent out her,
I think that was with a misnomer that it was by the Fair Labor and Standards Act that they believed that they couldn't be paid for more than an 8-hour holiday.
I remember that discussion before, and that's
Not the
incorrect.
case.
but we shouldn't pay them for more than an 8-hour holiday.
But it's not that you can't.
But it's
Right.
not that you can't. I get that.
And I like the idea of the consistency, but I don't know what the 260-day staff necessarily feel about that. I would assume that they would think that it would be nice to
I
have
want to make one
consistency.
comment. Every single employee that's 260 gets vacation starting July 1. So there's no reason why they wouldn't have vacation they could use for those 2 days.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, they
And
could
it-
take it off if they wanted to.
And if we change it, they're gonna use more of their time to take off the same amount of time.
That's understandable.
Like, they're gonna lose more hours in their
Maybe a
week.
quarter of a day, yeah.
Well, I actually had
Times
some
2 days.
260 employees contact me directly, and this was when we had those 2 days there in July, and they asked to have them moved to the March date.
I had heard that from
And
multiple
that's
people
what
as
had come
well.
out of
Well,
United as
I
well.
can see the 2 days,
So-
Lori, but when you're, it would just be 1 day that you're bringing back, and it really gives a balance to it.
But
Where
the
they
one
could-
day we're
they-
bringing back in March, it's an 8-hour day, but when we
That's
put it
what I
in
was
July,
gonna
it's
say.
a
It would be
10-hour
a 10-hour
day.
day.
And then we're paying them
And they
more
can
money,
take
a
their
10-hour
vacation just as
holiday.
easily in March as they could in July too.
I
She
just
would be
think that
paying out
That's
10
an
there
hours.
weren't
eight-hour
enough
day.
people that were complaining about that
Right.
to
change
to
it.
change
Try to
it.
change it, that's.
It was pretty clear that it was consistent throughout, that
Was
they
it on both
wanted them in the
sides?
morning.
I agree.
They wanted it in spring.
Granted, that was with the understanding that you couldn't, that they had to have the 8-hour days for,
I think it'd be well
That
worth
would
it
be
to
a
be clear
holiday.
about it.
say what?
I think it'd be well worth it to be clear about it.
I would agree with that.
Meaning what?
I would have no problem with, on this calendar, sending it out to those staff and saying, this is another option that's come up. What seems to be the, more to your liking? Because I don't think that it really changes, it doesn't change much in terms of the actual calendar, it just
Oh,
rearranges.
it changes greatly, because then they're asking for that week to be a 4-day week instead of a 5-day week. See, and then that then means that we move an 8-hour day and give them 10 hours on that Thursday, and they're gonna work 20 hours that week and have the 3 days off. Now, that's big time changes.
Well, I mean,
That's big time, I mean, you're
but
saying that's really not that much, it's a
It makes
lot
it
of change.
consistent with the rest of the June and July. And then it does, you're right, it does move, so they actually get both of those, that Thursday and that Friday off, because that Friday would be a normal off day.
And see, that Thursday would
but
be
that
considered a
Thursday-
10-hour day.
Right.
And there's
So
no way
that's-
they could work their 40 hours on Monday and Tuesday without working 20-hour days each day, which is ridiculous.
Well, that's
So
what they
the
do,
district is
and
given
that's
a
what
lot.
that's what they do the week of July 5th, or July 9th, 16th.
Yeah,
and
but they don't have a
23rd.
holiday in there that they're getting off, that they're being paid for.
In order for them to work their amount of days, they'd have to work 12 hours Monday and Tuesday to have the 8 hours off on the
Okay,
Wednesday and
okay.
Thursday.
Yeah,
To make it
12
a,
hours.
their
If you
40
just
hour.
if you just gave them an 8-hour holiday.
Right, so basically, if you move
Yeah.
this day to here,
That's
you're
what I'm
actually giving them another half a day paid off, is what you're doing.
And
Gives-
also if
You're
they,
giving a 10-hour.
It doesn't lose us any money, it just gives them another half a day paid off.
and also if they take vacation on that, they would be assessed more, day and a quarter versus.
Right.
Which I think that's helping them out anyway by giving them that extra time anyway. So then if they did want to take off the rest of the week or whatever the case may be, then I think that could be a fair trade. But I'm not a 260-day staff. I think that I'd like to take that information back.
So who represents, other than
Roy would
And we
be
can
the
take
other
the
one.
United
Roy
and
and
SJSD
Julie,
as well.
and then,
Roy and Julie.
Really what you're saying is kick it back to.
Yeah.
Take it back to United and see if that's something that could be just thought about.
Well-
Is there something in board policy that says the week of July 4th and the week of Memorial Day are 5-day weeks?
I thought there
That's a
was.
good
Yes.
question too. Brian.
Yes, we just approved that board
Yes, I'm
policy.
almost
That's what I keep
positive.
saying, that's what I keep saying, it is a big,
Well-
well, and I said earlier, that board policy is, right now it's in print, in board policy, so we would be
If it's in policy.
not following policy to do
then we
it.
obviously
I'm sure it is, because I was still on the
currently
policy committee when we wrote that one.
Yeah.
And that was voted on and accepted. And the big deal then was knowing that because that's a holiday week, it's gonna be a different work week. Same with, the other one thing it says is if it falls the week of the 31st of May.
But I
Somehow,
think that-
and this year it doesn't, but there's some, I think it was like last year or the year, somehow it followed with there's a week of the
there was
31st of
there
May.
was
The
something
thing about
else.
kicking it back, I think that Roy
I'm getting
and
there.
Julie both were pretty clear in their groups
What is
that
it,
they
Q's?
wanted the March. That's why we settled on March.
GC.
So kicking it back again, it was just we're rehashing the same thing again.
Well, true, however, it's a different idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand that point, but this may be something that they didn't think about whenever they put it out to their member or to their employee groups. So, I mean, it's just another option. And if it is in board policy that it's 8 hour, they work the 5 days or whatever for the 8 hour days, then obviously that makes this kind of null.
Yeah.
But that is something that could be considered for future revisions of policy.
This is awful.
To make it so they could have their 10 days.
It is awful to try to find
throughout.
policy online.
I know,
Anything
I about it.
online.
It's really hard.
It is. It's very
It's not
difficult.
user friendly.
Where are those texts?
So what's the overall consensus from that
Well, we're
side?
checking board policy, because if it's in board policy, it just wouldn't meet.
It's right here, and then employee leave, isn't it?
Okay, right there, GCB.
Such a dainty sneeze.
On down.
Yeah, it's down where the holidays are. Except in the weeks containing paid holiday, Memorial Day, and July 4th. The months of June and July will be 4-day work weeks. It's a number I under holidays. Or is that L? Is that an L? Or is that an I? It's under holidays. It says this month, the months of June and July will be 4-day work weeks, excepted weeks that contain a paid holiday, Memorial Day, and 4th of July.
Okay, so it's board policy. Gotcha.
All right,
It's number 1.
Then I think we're good.
so 260 as submitted. It's a wrap.
And number 5, right? Is that what
Well,
we said?
yeah, and 5. 5 with the wording about the active shooter stuff.
So we can
Is there
throw
something that we
number
were
3
gonna do
away.
with this? Or did you just send that out for everybody to review?
I just sent it out for review. I think I sent everybody the revision of GCQD, but I was not really intending for that to be a topic tonight. Were you guys thinking it was or was not?
I just
I
printed
did,
it off.
I did not think it was.
Okay, no, I think that's something we can easily do when we do the rest of the meeting and confirm, but I just wanted to get the changes
Right,
out.
and following it tonight for superintendent dialogue.
All right. So we're officially done meeting and conferring, and
We have met and conferred.